Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. My name is Roger Struckoff. I'm in charge of research here at IDCA. And today we are going to talk about physical security and cybersecurity at data centers. We had planned this webinar quite some time ago, but it's gained new relevance over the last couple of weeks with the war in the Middle East. So we're very glad today to welcome in alphabetical order Douglas Dreyer with Pavilion Security, Paul Jankowski with First Coast Security, and Frank Konieczny with Patriot Cyber Defense. Frank spent 30 years on the civilian side of the Air Force in IT, and he was CTO of the Air Force for some time. And he is now pursuing a lot of projects, and some, I believe, do still involve the Air Force.
Yep.
Paul and Doug have both served in the military at one point and take what they learned there and apply it into the business world. We're going to find out today whether the military and business worlds, how much difference, how much similarity there is. The idea of physical security and cybersecurity as being two separate things, and whether that really should continue, and how minds have been focused by these recent attacks. So, if we could start off, we have some survey questions for everybody. They're in real time, so we're going to put them up, and we'd love to have your feedback, and that will help inform our discussion. So, if our producer could put up the first question, that would be great. Number one, in light of the recent attacks in the Middle East, how critical are data centers to national security today? We'll wait a few seconds and then I believe the results will come pouring in. I think. It takes a little longer than I'm used to. We may have to go straight to the discussion. Do they come in? Okay. I just have to be a little more patient than I'm used to being. Essential national infrastructure. We don't even have a 5% of contrary thinking this time. Of course, this is a absolutely critical issue. And number two, please. Second question. To what degree do wars and other conflicts increase risk in a general way? I'll let you guys put your thumb on the scale for this one a little bit. What do you think, the three panelists? Doug, what do you think is a good answer to this question?
Maybe significantly.
Significantly. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why? It may sound simplistic for me to ask this, but why? Why is this, you know, how does it increase risk in a general way? Frank?
Because it also affects people here in the United States because of the way that people attack everybody else just because of their uh, beliefs and whatever. You got to understand that, anything that's going on in the outside world also affects people in the United States because of just and
Okay.
the terrorists
Paul?
here. Just think of it that way.
Yeah, well, um, the audience agrees. Paul, why is 86% saying yes? Why are you guys saying, well, it's significant? Is it that obvious?
It's pretty obvious. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I don't really have a different opinion. I mean, there's
Yeah,
lots of different reasons for that.
yeah,
Um, just look at what's going on in Ukraine and how that's changed, um, really warfare, drone defense,
yeah,
um, the protections that you're going to have to put in place now
yeah,
in those critical areas.
yeah. And Doug, what do you think? Why is it
And
so significant?
I think it does because it increases the vulnerability.
Yeah,
Um, to Frank's point, whether you are in the kinetic area
hmm,
or whether you're just impacted by the kinetic area based on people's beliefs and their opinions and how far that can go. Um, I think it significantly increases the risk. And
Yeah.
Paul's point about Ukraine, definitely dead on. It is changed the battlefield.
Let's do one more question and then we'll start the real conversation. Which security dimension represents the greatest vulnerability for data centers today? We
Greatest.
deliberately did not do an all of the above on this one because that's what everyone
I would've said all of the
wants to
above.
say.
Yeah.
We're gonna make you choose. Who is your favorite child? We want people to say, and you know, we may get an audience that doesn't want to answer this because the proper answer is probably 25%. Is the proper answer to this question 25% yes to all four? What do you think, Frank? Are they equal?
They're all a problem. You know, this is hard because it depends. We can discuss all these in different
Yeah,
manners because you know, cybersecurity affects both, power affects everything, supply chain can affect all of them too. You know, everything
yeah.
affects everything.
We're not really this dense, you know, but I just thought to be a little bit of a troublemaker, we'd ask this question and see what happens to see if any of them actually do emerge. Okay, cybersecurity risk, and look at this. After we've prepped everything about physical security, but yet cybersecurity still dominates the answers here, with the assumption that all four of these are very important to everyone in the audience. So, participants, we really thank you for your answers. And let's start the discussion. Frank, you spent your time in the Air Force. To what degree did you worry about physical security versus cybersecurity, or were they both sort of in the same general
Okay.
area for you?
They're okay. Remember, the Air Force is worldwide. And
Yeah,
so we have data centers all over the world and every base. So physical security is always a big deal, no matter what you do. Cybersecurity is also a big deal because you have to look at what viewpoint you want to actually disrupt the data center. I can
yeah,
disrupt it through cybersecurity. I can disrupt it in many ways. As we talked, you know, you can disrupt the power supply, disrupt the water, you can disrupt things with security, or I can blow them up. And when you're in the bases, you know, in Asia and everything, it's the choice between which one you want to think is going to be the worst, either blow up or whatever. And therefore, you have to look at it from the viewpoint of, yes, they go together, and you may have an attack that does both. In fact, that's probably the usual attack. It's probably not the simple attack. And
yeah,
when we talk about cybersecurity, you always have to look at what is the least vulnerable or the most vulnerable thing that you have, but you never think it's vulnerable. We found that out in many cases that simple things, you know, we don't think about it, but they can come in and destroy something that destroys something else and that blows up your data center.
yeah. Paul and Doug, you're shaking your heads yes. Paul, what do you think of what Frank's saying?
Oh, absolutely. I think they're co-equal pillars. A lot of times, physical security in the past has been, uh, I use the word subjugated to cybersecurity, or is invoked because of a cybersecurity rule.
Yeah,
But to me, you know, the cloud has a street address, and that street address can get hit by a drone. So I think they're both I think they're both important.
yeah. Doug?
No, I agree. And I think the good news out of this, and certainly Frank and Paul can weigh in, we've seen more of a convergence lately in a lot of industries, especially the data center industry, where that playing field is getting leveled.
Yeah,
There are still outliers. To Paul's point, if I look at NERC, because number 2 on the list was power, and the grid is certainly important. But the majority of the physical security requirements under NERC are driven by cybersecurity. And
okay.
again, as that scale balances out, they're both equally important, to Frank's point, because one can drive the other.
Well, we were talking, we had a nice discussion actually for our participants before we started. Cybersecurity may never get the attention it fully deserves, no matter how much we talk about the potentially catastrophic risk you're taking. But at least it's understood that it's a necessity. But I think it was Doug or Paul, it doesn't matter. Doug, we'll ask you, physical security still seems to be just a cost center and maybe not
Yeah.
fully appreciated. Do you agree with that?
I agree. Again, we're seeing changes, especially in the data center industry, but it's slow. It's the tortoise and the hare kind of thing. When
Yeah.
I talk to CFOs and other leadership across all verticals, uh, they see physical security as that hole in the floor where you
Yeah.
just throw money.
Mm,
So what you have to do is redefine what the return on the investment is for the company.
yeah.
And the easiest way to do that is to interlace cyber and physical security with safety because they're all interlocked.
Mhm.
How safe is my workforce? How safe is the environment my people are working in? How safe are my assets? And it boils down to a couple of things because I think historically, and we talked about this before the webinar began, historically, they don't like to spend money on physical security because when we come to work, if there's if we're kind of bored, that's a good day in the security world
Mhm.
because frequently you're overcome by events. Uh, it's very rare to be bored at work, whether you're doing physical or cyber security. And
Yeah.
it boils down to what is the impact on the business if something like this happens.
Yeah.
It's the cost of the human life plus the brand impact to the business.
Right. Well, Paul, when we convened some standards committee meetings a few months ago, and you guys were there, and I remember you mentioned at the time that on one hand, physical security, if you're not protecting your perimeter, a person with bad intentions and modest means could actually get some kind of drone and probably disrupt things and cause some damage. But should we assume that that sort of risk is still something that people need to be aware of, while at the same time, I think we're talking about missiles coming in now.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about securing the data center, a lot of companies, and traditionally they're just talking about that site. Same thing on the cyber side. It's like, how do you secure this site? But everything's interconnected, and they don't really. I don't think, and Doug mentioned NERC. There's not really a plan to secure the critical infrastructure. Data centers are not even considered critical infrastructure in the United States. There's like 16 sectors, I think, that are refined sectors, and
Mhm.
um,
Should they
data
be?
centers aren't mentioned. They're mentioned in a couple of them, but not like they
Yeah,
have it in Europe.
but should they be?
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you have crazy amounts of money being spent on data center and campus security to secure these locations, but then why am I going to break into that location when I can shut that down from a distance? I could just take out the substation, or I could go after the fiber vaults. Almost all of them are unprotected, especially in rural areas. And there's not a lot of money for that. They haven't really planned that out. And, they're rebuilding substations or have rebuilt substations in Ukraine like 10 times because they keep getting hit. Um, the lead time on transformers is crazy long. And so I think you need that holistic view. I like a CSO setup where you have um, the chief security officer and physical and cyber and future ones under that same leadership, one leader, one budget, one attack surface, right?
Um,
That's how I think we could solve a lot of the problems. And then, a holistic view. We need tiered levels, like what the IDCA does for data center physical security.
yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's very important.
Yeah. Well, Frank, you had mentioned, so you mentioned that the U.S. military is
Mhm.
global.
Yep.
Um, my thought is, you also mentioned, I remember in the past we've talked about you can have a great policy, you can have a great strategy, you can have a great execution plan, but if one general somewhere, one admiral somewhere decides that he or she doesn't want to do this, it can cause a problem. How do you really focus people's minds in large organizations today about the absolute necessity of physical security hand in hand with
Okay.
cybersecurity?
In the military, we talk about mission requirements and mission execution.
Yeah,
They have to focus on the mission execution. And that's what the big deal is. What do I need to do to complete a mission? And this is do the analysis even in the data center. It's a question of what essential elements do I have to do to keep a mission going? I mean, some things can fall away and it's not going to matter with the mission, but there are certain things, certain applications, certain connectivity, certain electricity, certain cooling that has to be provided to achieve the mission. And that's what their focus has to be on. Because, in data centers, lots of things there. It
yeah,
depends on what you want to actually say is my mission critical thing that I have to do. And that's the focus point you have to take. And that's the same with the security point of view. Same thing, my security has to match what I think is my mission. And if I have to, if I have cybersecurity issues, I need to then figure out how can I divert the cybersecurity issues to make sure my mission goes on. So it's a question of moving things upward, moving things around. And then that's been an issue with the missions. We
yeah,
played that game a lot with OT and IoT. Because remember, operational tech is really the issue. I can
yeah.
I can cyber attack an OT device that turns off your cooling fans. Okay, that does real bad thing for your mission.
Yeah.
But unless I know that I have to have something special established for a particular set of server farm, whatever, then I have to do something else.
Well, Paul, you're agreeing with what Frank is saying. I'm curious, in your case, in everyone's case, but in your case in particular, do you ever get the feeling when you're telling people all this that nobody's really listening? Do you feel like you're just a pro forma sort of exercise?
Yeah, I hope that's not personal on me, but yeah,
Probably not.
sometimes. But listen, it's money, right? Budgets. I think a lot of the times, right, proper planning ahead of time, um, actually having a plan and then figuring out what the risks are, what the threats are, uh, and discussing that, and then deciding what you're going to spend money on and improve is the path forward. What you mentioned about OT devices and that, you know, I think it's like 76% of the companies out there still don't have like their own security network.
Mhm.
And 9% of them, I think, are on wireless networks, which is
Wonderful.
even worse.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So I think there's a game plan for this. Incidents like this or issues like this actually make us better in the long term.
Yeah. Well, Doug, it's sort of the same question. Assuming that it's not personal, if people don't listen to Paul or listen to Frank, do how many times in a way do you have to tell people something before they listen and it's things get involved? How much actual change have you seen, do you see, based on what you're telling people that they really need to do?
Depends on the audience.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'm going to echo exactly what Frank and Paul said. This may be it is my personal opinion. Um, I think it's about 50-50.
Yeah.
Whether they're listening or it's just, oh, the security guy's running his mouth. And the CFO's bored because it's going to cost them money. Again, you have to drive home the impact. All it takes is one time. And in the security world, we kind of have a mantra across the board. I have to be vigilant every second of every minute of every hour of every day.
Yeah.
they only have to be lucky one time,
Yeah.
or they only have to get past it one time.
Yeah.
And that goes back to my previous statement with brand impact. It's like watching your stock. That customer base keeps going up on an incline. Hey, good for us. Look at us making billions of dollars. And then there's an incident and the stock drops, like bottoms out underneath you because your customers leave you for the next thing. It's not like there's only one or two cloud providers now,
Yeah.
and one or two data centers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at 500 to 600 billion with a B just for this year alone.
Yeah.
And it's not going to slow down. I think they really need to look at the convergence between cyber and physical.
Yeah.
Each one can drive the other, and then position themselves as a business to meet the IDCA standards.
Right.
Hey, Roger, real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask.
Capacity is ruling everything,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's running as fast as they can. So you now have companies that are traditionally not data center companies in that data center build operation, right? So you have bit mining companies, hedge funds, energy
Realty.
companies, etc. So they don't necessarily, they're not all on the same page. They're all rushing to capacity. And, do they listen or not? Well, sometimes not.
Yeah.
It's maybe not purposeful sometimes, but sometimes they'll have a cyber security expert, but no physical security expert, or physical security is left up to construction or the operations side of the business. So they don't necessarily have a bolt-on plan from the beginning, during due diligence, all the way through construction, all the way through operations. And I've personally seen a lot of wasted time and effort and tons of money, um, in different efforts that just didn't pan out because we just somebody didn't have a plan. Um, yeah.
So let's say we're sitting in the Middle East right now. We're sitting in Qatar, say. We're sitting in UAE. Doesn't matter. You mentioned two available. So I think someone was talking about two AZs went out with AWS in the Middle East over the last couple of weeks. So now you're operating a facility there. Who are you screaming at to make this stop? Because this goes well beyond anything that you would plan. Frank, let me start with you. Who would you be screaming at to get this to stop?
That's a good question. Depends who the security
What can
team
you
is.
what can be done in the short term once the crisis is
Okay.
sitting right in
Okay.
your lap?
This is the crisis management issue that we always have.
Yeah,
We didn't plan for a crisis. If we didn't go walk through how we would be
right,
remediating for that crisis, we will not succeed in
right.
remediating. I mean, all the plans. I mean, I played this plan issues before, and I
Yeah,
find that as soon as we start doing a walkthrough of a particular incident and the steps that are going to be taken, everybody forgets what they're supposed to do. And first of all, they all make mistakes and they leave out things.
yeah.
And it's amazing how the plans are not really plans. They're,
It's
you do cybersecurity to be fine. You do physical security. Somehow that has to work, and that never
it's
works. So I
it's
think that
what Mike Tyson says, right? About a fight. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face.
yeah, but nobody knows the remediation capabilities. You know what you have to do. I mean, they
Yeah,
should have a remediation plan, right? Right,
yeah,
and they should
Yep.
have already gone through walkthroughs of here's an incident. What are we going to do? Because if you don't do that, you will fail. Because I tell you, having going through several of these, you find that people overlook very little that cause major problems,
yeah.
and this is what. And so,
So
and
again, you're agreeing. You seem to be in violent agreement, Paul, with what he's saying.
Oh yeah.
I probably shouldn't use the word violent in this context, but anyway. So what are you going to do? It's in your lap
Well,
right
again,
now.
proper planning, right? The business continuity is very important. Um, But I would just ask some questions. Like we've been watching what's been going on in Ukraine for years and years
Hmm.
now. I mean, they use sandbags. Think of a sandcastle. They're basically building sandcastles around substations to reduce that blast effect and debris. That's been around for years now.
Hmm.
If we have locations, or if there's locations like that across the globe, like how come we're not taking those lessons that are already being learned?
So these are unfortunate lessons that the world really should pay attention
Yes.
to and
They should
apply.
definitely pay attention to that. They're also building, which I think is amazing, these ridiculously engineered substations. I mean, think about the impact, right? So AI weight models, right? Those are the new crown jewels.
Okay.
Those should be secured at very high skiff level security, right? And again, right outside of the data center is a substation that's completely vulnerable, or fiber routes that are completely vulnerable. And so,
Yeah.
if we just go back, just look at history and look what's going on, you could start making some changes. They're also diversifying their electrical infrastructure. So they're cutting down on the 1,000 gigawatt sites and going with 100, and
Hmm.
then interconnecting them.
Yes.
And they've had to build over, I think, 80 of these hardened structures. Well,
Mhm.
it's kind of old news,
Yeah.
right? So I
Old news has suddenly become very relevant, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
Doug, what are your thoughts about what Frank and Paul are saying here?
Complete agreement.
Hmm.
And to reemphasize both their points, drill, test, tabletop, rewrite if you need to, continuity of operations planning and remediation are key to any um, security plan.
Hmm.
And again, we're seeing security planning merge. We definitely saw it in, I guess we have to say, Department of War now. In Department of War, where it's a requirement that you
Right.
have those plans, that you drill. That's the key to what Paul was saying earlier. You've got to recognize data centers as critical infrastructure. I can tell you right now, I know of one hyperscaler where all DNI traffic goes through that hyperscaler.
Right.
Now, there's separate data centers, and Frank's very familiar, and I know Paul is too, with who I'm talking about. They're built to that level, but it has to be
But
national critical infrastructure, and that's a two-sided coin. You
but
get a lot of
hypothetically,
benefits, but there's a lot of
yeah.
commercial business would say bad things that
But
come
Doug,
with it.
I'm sitting out in Illinois, and I have a data center out here in the middle of cornfield. It's not going to happen to me. So should I get fired for saying that?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
How
Pulaski, where are you going to get
irresponsible
the
am
money to
I?
do that?
Look, 30 years in the military, and I can tell you a very large majority of that anti-terrorism, counterterrorism.
Hmm.
I'm looking for the soft target,
Yes. All the time.
which is why what
Ah, all the
IDCA
time.
does with the graduated, where are you on the scale, is the key because that's customer impact. Paul talked about the modeling. There's new VLM models out there right now called JEPA. And the audience can look it up. Just type in VLM space JEPA. If
Okay.
if you're not into this, it's going to put you to sleep. I'm telling you, it's an abstract.
Well, I think everyone here is going to be into it.
The the way the models approach now are line by line. If I'm reaching for a coffee mug, it breaks that down into line by line. What's my hand doing? What's the coffee mug doing? What's the liquid in the coffee mug doing? JEPA is that in between where now it's starting to think like a human. It puts it together with predictive analysis. Um, it's that next step to AGI. and we're already there. The soft target, my place in Illinois, if I'm a bad actor, that's what I'm going to look at.
Yeah. Well, Paul, my facetious comment was certainly not directed at anyone who's participating in this webinar, watching. I'm assuming that the actual data center operators and professionals are extremely vigilant all the time. But I think that comment may be more relevant, say, to some of the people who set the budgets. Is that a fair way to look at it? Is it maybe this sharp attention that you need to have doesn't permeate the entire organization? Would that be a fair way to look at things?
Yeah, I believe so. Again, I think it's the way it's set up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you didn't have physical security under operations, for example, then you're not competing with facilities for the same budget, right? And so it's not a cost center, right? It's a plan
Yeah.
in conjunction with cyber, and then you have your own budget for that. That also tamps down the, sometimes the swings with the overreactions to what's going on in the world, because you have to build it right the first time. If you don't really build it right the first time, where's that money coming from to level set those sites? And then you're building in the future. And so if you're building in the future, you leave sites behind that are not maybe at that same level.
Frank, one thing we've learned about in the 21st century, we probably should have learned about it before, but certainly I think in this century is the concept of asymmetric warfare. And it seems like I'm not quite sure how to characterize 24/7, 365 cyber threats, if that's asymmetric or not. But how you mentioned all the time, the bad actors of the world, the enemies of different nations are thinking about finding the soft underbelly 24/7, 365. How do you deal with that, in the role you had and the work you're doing today? And would you describe that as asymmetric, or is that just not really
Well,
relevant?
it's asymmetric because you can go multiple ways to the attack. And
Mhm.
that's always been the issue. You want to do multiples. I mean, you just
Mhm.
don't want, if you don't go one way, then that's not asymmetric. That's very symmetric, and you
Yeah.
can actually figure out what's going on. Even in cyber, you do asymmetric attacks in cyber down different paths because you don't want to. I mean, I can say, "Oh, here's my cyber," and you can detect it right away. You don't want that. You want sneaky cyber. You want sneaky ways of doing multiple things. And I might throw in some physical, you know, kinetic things as well. And you may use kinetics just as a diversion to get your cyber into the particular area. And so, I could say, I could put simple things. I can, try to bomb the data center and blow an explosion outside of it, which would take all the people looking outside while I'm pushing in security issues into the system itself. And I can defeat everything that way. So you got to look at it from various viewpoints. Which which is the easiest way to get into the data center or the data elements or the applications that are sitting there?
Mhm.
And that's what you got always have to look for, and that's what they have to play. And that's the problem that we have. And it's a budget problem too. I mean, we talked about that. It's a question of how much you want to spend to secure your mission. Now, if I'm a normal corporate person, my mission is to make money for my stakeholders.
Yeah.
It may not be
Well,
running the data center, but it's making money. That's their mission. So it's a question of how you translate that into, if I have a problem, how can I lose money? Something
well,
happens at the data center.
so I see two completely different things here sort of emerging. One is the ongoing idea that we want to purloin your data. We want to steal everything that we can that's not nailed down. But now, in a time of war or a time of true hostility, we also want to disrupt your communications. Those appear to be two different things to me. Ultimate goal is you're trying to do harm, but they seem like two different motivations or two different worlds. Is that a good way to look at it? I'll start with Frank, and then we can
No,
have.
I don't think a quite good way. I think you're still trying to destroy a mission.
Yeah.
I can destroy a mission in multiple ways. I can take out the data center or I can take out the electrical or the the comm substation, or I can go and infiltrate a particular application and change some data in that application that will do the same effect. Just think of it
Yeah.
that way. And, if I
Paul, how
had
do you
it's
go ahead,
logistics in
Frank?
my data center, and I changed missiles I have to either higher than I have or lower,
Yeah.
is upon how one missiles and I only have 100. Guess what? They're going to lose the battle. But
Mhm.
that mission is defeated by a very little change. But I may have to do it asymmetric. I may have to, have them look someplace else. This is always happens. You always
Yeah.
want to look someplace else to divert attention to what, and that's where you squeeze things in. So it's always a
Yeah.
combo of things. If you think of
Okay.
that as a combination of what, and it's all mission related. Again,
Oh, okay. Well, Paul, what do you think of that? Am I
Well,
talking about two different things here, or what?
yeah, you might want to add delay to that also, right? So
Hmm.
AI weight models, the new crown jewels, like I said, if you can delay
yes,
that training and you can take it
Hmm.
offline, that's a huge impact.
yeah,
Again, why I'm kind of looking at resiliency as the mitigation to that, and physical security is not necessarily always included in that resiliency plan, and I think that definitely has to change. Rand Corp came out in 2024 with that awesome document they wrote about AI weight models, and it lays that entire plan out. Now they didn't necessarily address physical security, and that was on purpose. And they kind of left that to, I guess, the industry, us. So that's the next step, I think. But until you get to that air gap system, um,
Hmm.
that air gap that's still potentially coming here, hopefully soon. It's very vulnerable. But I think delaying could cost you billions of dollars.
yes,
Hmm.
you can. Same thing.
Well, Doug, I
Yeah.
look at, um, theft versus destruction versus disruption, but I looking at it as versus. It sounds like you guys are saying this is really all one and the same thing. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that, Doug?
I think it's one and the same. I'm going to agree
Mhm.
with Frank and Paul on that. Um, any attack on a potential attack on a data center or its surrounding infrastructure has to be asymmetric, especially nowadays. I mean, it's not the Revolutionary War. We're not standing in a line and then politely shooting at each other and then letting the other side politely return volley.
Right. And
It's
hope they
very
get,
asymmetric, a very asymmetric environment, if you will.
yeah.
Um,
We hope they get more smallpox than we do. I mean,
yes,
disease killed more people in war than the violence for a
yeah,
long time, but not now.
agreed.
Yeah.
But especially Paul's point was so dead on. If you look at the impact where Elon with Grok, Musk,
Hmm.
and having to delay that by 2 months, that I agree with Paul and Frank. That's probably billions in a B of impact on the business.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing we've been talking about everything. There's a trickle down effect to all this, right? That may start at the data center, but what vendors am I impacting because of these delays, right? Because of the failure,
Hmm.
because of business continuity failure, and then how does that impact the community as a whole?
Right. Yeah, I want to let's get a couple more survey questions, and then we can. I'd like to talk about that for a while about digital infrastructure as a whole. Get not just the data center, even if you're an operations person at a specific facility, and you may think not really your job, but we'll talk about that. Let's look
Okay.
at question 4. See what our participants have to say. I think it'll come up here. There we go. How prepared is your organization for geopolitical or military related disruption, even if you're out here in Illinois? There's a lot of data centers and nuclear power plants that sit very close to my house. I hope those people don't show up my door with pitchforks and torches today going, dude, what do you say?
You just made us a
Well, and
target.
Apple announced their new manufacturing plant just north of Chicago
Okay.
for quantum chips.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
The governor is, we just had a primary election. The governor's trying to get new business in the state. Primary was yesterday. And so how prepared are we? This is sort of
Interesting.
what you expect to see, where you have a group that thinks it's pretty well prepared, and then you have 2/3 of the people who say, well, not really, somewhat, and not. And that's 2/3 of the audience. So one more question. I mean, for now, we actually have a total of 7, but let's do number 5 for now, and then we can discuss things a little more. I think it'll come up.
Roger, the poll
Go
question
ahead.
is not showing up.
Oh, number 5 is not showing up.
No.
5, 6, 7, they're not showing up.
Oh, okay. Well, we can certainly go with this. This is actually a good segue to the final part of the discussion. Is how prepared is your organization? 2/3 of the people here who are professionals and should know would like their organizations to be prepared better than it is. In that context, oh, here, finally, there we go. There's number 5. It came up. Who should take the leading role? Yeah, this was the one before when I was sort of asking who are you screaming at in this particular case. Again, there's more than one correct answer to this, but we don't get to do all the above. We'd really like to have people say, look, who's the primary person that's responsible here, that really needs to be responsible? And the answer is not telcos. The answer, national governments. The country the size of the United States, a little bit different an issue than it is in a lot of countries. The data center operators, and then we have 1 in 4 mention these international cooperative frameworks. So I'll get to that in a second. I do want to talk a little bit about that. But for now, the idea of being prepared, and Frank, how prepared do you need to be not only for the data centers, but in the context of all the digital infrastructure that this thing is serving, and how do you go about doing that? Easy question.
That's an easy question.
Should just take you a few seconds to answer that.
How do you fix everything in the world? Oh, let me
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Write down everything that you know. Yeah.
Okay, this has always been a problem. And
Yeah.
in the other survey basically said the problem is, who's in charge of doing all this? That's
Yeah.
always a question. And I think you have to go back to what is the mission again. Okay.
Mhm.
Electrical infrastructure is probably one of the issues that we all have a problem with that has to be preserved. So is that a national issue? Probably yes. Just because it affects not only the data centers, it affects everything else in the. Likewise, question is for data centers. Now, data centers are a little bit because they're serving a business purpose, not a national purpose. So it's a question of who in the data side should be actually supporting this. And then we get to, the business side. So does the government in charge of doing business or not? I mean, that's a big question. They can restrict and regulate whatever, but the business people have to understand that when they build data centers, they have to do something to support the data center and the resiliency with that data center, as well as the remediation of that data center. And I think that's where you get into, that is part of the digital infrastructure issue that we have. And with AI coming on, we have more of a digital infrastructure issue now, because it's a question of how are you going to use AI in the digital infrastructure as opposed to anything else. And
Yeah.
then, and the data center, especially since we're going with, AI chips and everything, it's going to suck electricity more than everything else. So it's a question
Yeah.
of how you regulate everything that's going on within the country when you have these parameters that you're trying to measure and to weigh everything into what is critical for the nation as well as what is critical to make the business side, which is the data centers, work properly
Right.
too.
So Paul, it's a partial differential equation question. So how do you address it? Who's in charge and what are you in charge of? And the organization's not prepared. And what are you going to do?
Yeah, you know, I'm always of the mindset of being self-sufficient, right? So whatever entity you're with and not waiting. If we're waiting on the government, I mean, data centers are not even critical infrastructure, right? That doesn't even have its own sector.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah,
there's five energy bills right
they are
now.
in they are in the UK,
Well, yes.
for
Um,
example.
talking about the U.S., I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I know. I mean, I was just throwing out an example. Well, they are in the UK, but they're not here.
Yeah, but let's say those five bills, right? Four of them
Hmm.
have nothing to do. They're all about cybersecurity, nothing about
Okay.
physical security. Only one of them mentions physical attacks, and it's only a planning requirement, by the way. And there's no funding, and
Okay.
there's no hardening, right?
Okay.
Even NERC, they declined to expand, I think, in 2023. And so, if we're waiting for that, I think we're going to be waiting for a long time. I think if you focused on the resiliency piece like you do with the rest of the data center, physical security should just be a part of that, cybersecurity be a part of that, right? And plan it out based on the risk and the threats. That's
Mhm.
how I look at it. I think the industry itself has to do it. And overall on the physical security side, we're doing a lot. Even at the commercial level, the Secure Building Council is standing up. So think leads for building, that certification, same thing. Secure
Yeah.
Building Council. There's
Okay.
lots of different ways that I think the industry can raise the bar, but they have to expand what their vision looks like instead of just that data center and just their customers. It's that holistic view. I mean, think about it. If you're spending all of this money on supporting a data center for resiliency, right? Generators, backup energy sources and stuff, but 76% of them are still don't have a security network, it's not the same. So if
Mhm.
we just raise that up as an industry, and I think that data center companies, the energy companies, we don't have to wait for the government to put that into place.
Right. So Doug, he's saying don't wait for the cavalry to arrive, and maybe if the cavalry arrives, you don't want them to anyway. Are you in general agreement with that assessment?
Yeah. Um, Again, it's also because it's a business. Um, we've seen the U.S. government; they can move very fast, kind of, if they want to, but most of the time, it's moving like a snail in jello.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that the operators, to Paul's point and Frank's point, have to take the leading, the tip of the spear, if you will, on these issues. But I also agree with the international framework, and I think that's what IDCA brings to the table.
Hmm.
Paul mentioned Secure Building Council. Um, that's a again, it's exactly what Paul said. Started out like Leeds. It's a nonprofit, but it's the industry policing itself, and that's something to tie in with that international framework. I understand that international frameworks are almost like waiting on the national government to do something.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can take a long time. IDCA, we've seen some really huge leaps
Mhm.
uh, in the last year and a half. 2 years, with countries signing on saying, no, we believe in this. We think this is how data centers should be run. But again, the operators right now, they've got to take the lead.
One thing that, and I'll ask Doug this first, and then the other two, we can talk about this as well. A lot of times when you're trying to set standards, the old expression, everyone loves standards so much they each want one of their own. And because you're trying to achieve a market edge, a competitive advantage. A lot of times there's proprietary intellectual property that's going to make you resist opening up too much about different sources of standards in design and operations. But it seems that's not the case here. We're talking about battening down systems, and we're talking about protecting your data physically and in cyberspace and everything that can go wrong there. Doesn't it seem to you that the industry, could work more closely together on this than in a lot of other areas of IT?
100%, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're writing these standards, you don't need to get to that granular level. Do you have perimeter security? Do you have perimeter security with electronic security integrated?
I don't have to
Do
tell
you
you
have
anything
access
right.
controls? These are simple questions that are yes or
Right.
no. And I 100% agree with that statement.
Yeah. What do you think, Paul? I mean, sometimes if something makes too much sense, well, then of course it never gets done. But am I being simplistic when I'm saying this?
No,
Or is
not
this?
at all.
Uh,
I don't like, you don't want to be too prescriptive, right?
yeah. Right.
My thought, it's pretty simple. You need to build it right the first time. You need to build high and operate low until it hits the fan, and then you're prepared, I think, right? If you just used SEPTED principles and defense in depth from the planning stages and had a great business continuity plan, you don't, and the tiered leveled approach for resiliency, I think you're solid.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily need the government to step in and tell you, hey, this is how it's supposed to be. I've heard a lot of people though recently talking about, well, now we need data centers to be designated critical infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Doug had mentioned that, maybe Frank, that could bring things that they want and some that they don't want also.
Yeah.
So my perspective.
Well, Frank, what we're saying, what can be done now? I mean, you agreeing with basically this shouldn't be that hard, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I think
And what can we do right now?
I think there should be some standards across the board
Mm-hmm.
that everybody could agree to. But that can't be prescriptive to death, like CMMC and everything else. It gets very prescriptive after a while, and you're doing, NIST controls, and you have to get audited and everything else. That takes a lot of work, takes a lot of bother, and it doesn't actually sometimes do things, because if you're compliant doesn't mean you have security.
Mm-hmm.
This is the other issue that we run
Yeah.
into. I can have all the check boxes done, but I may not be secure. So there has to be a means between the thing, and it has to probably come the business side, that the business can advertise that they're meeting the security requirements. That's a standard that they've developed. I think that would go a long way as the government come down and say, you must do this and do the audit.
Yeah, I mean, something prescriptive that would have penalties if you don't comply, that just seems like that.
That doesn't that's problem space. And there's, as I say, you're just compliant. You're not really secure or anything at that point in time. You're compliant to death. And that's been the problem.
So the last thing we want is to make like a checklist. So you go through there may be, to be honest, certain things in business that you can take a checklist approach without risking huge damage to yourself. This is not one of those things.
Probably not that checklist.
Let's look. We have two more questions, and I think Paul's going to really like one of them. So let's see if they're available. Yeah, number six. Which which risk will have the greatest impact on digital infrastructure security in the next decade? Yeah, I know. We're trying to make people choose. Let's see. You have to
Wow,
pick
that's a
one.
mean question.
You have to pick one. So far, people have been, cooperative. We really thank everyone's participation in this. This is very, very informative, at least to me. And the answers. So, what's the most popular answer going to be? AI-driven cyber threats. That pesky AI just doesn't go away. The topic. It seems like it's going to be a problem. It's going to present opportunities and problems in the cyber warfare. But AI-driven, in a way, that's almost an unknown because we know that it might get real sophisticated. We're not exactly sure. Uh, what was it that Feynman said? Anyone that tells you they understand quantum mechanics doesn't know what they're talking about. I think it's the same thing with AI. Anyone who really knows what the future of AI, who says they know the future of AI,
They
doesn't.
don't know.
No. Okay, number seven. This is the one that's Paul. Should countries treat data centers as key national infrastructure? So we've loaded this up. We'll see if our participants agree that they should be. The fourth answer, I wrestled with that a little bit. That may be a little bit of a straw man sort of argument, but we'll see what people say. I think we've lost the statistical validity of the polls by putting our thumbs on the scale, but that's okay. They're critical national interests. You betcha. The answer is, as they say in the Midwest, a big you betcha. 2/3 say yes, absolutely. So, uh, let's finish with that. We got 3 minutes, so we'll give 1 minute each. We'll start with Frank. So, based on that last question, what should we do? What should everyone who's watching this, once they're done, if they don't have another call right at the top of the hour, what should they do immediately?
They should determine what their key mission requirements are and figure out what security plan they want to do to remediate it and do tabletop exercises to make sure they have the plan that will work. That's what they should
Okay,
do.
that's what they should. Paul, should they call their member of Congress? Paul, what should they do?
I'm going to agree with Frank. You can't argue with that. Not at all.
Okay, and Doug, what should people do right now, organizationally, and should they reach out and try to take action collectively too?
I'm going to agree with Frank and Paul.
Yes,
Plan, test, drive, drill. However, I'm going to add in there's only one way to get the horse across the finish line.
Uh-huh.
And if that means contacting representatives, senators, saying, hey, we really need this. If you're a member of an organization, SIA as is, IEEE, have them push it too. Because I've been saying this for years, and Paul can back this up because we've known each other for a long time. Yeah, I keep saying we got to protect it. It's got to be CIP.
So you three are way too agreeable, which is great. We're all on the same page. And it's interesting because even though, Paul and Doug certainly you've known each other for a while, you're operating in three different worlds. I mean, you each have separate jobs and organizations, but yet there's kind of a unanimity of opinion here. Now, there have been some questions that have come in from participants, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to them. But all three of these people are at your avail. They would love to talk to you. So find them on LinkedIn, find them through IDCA, contact us if you want to. If you need to, we can put you in touch. They'd love to talk to you. So, Frank, Paul, Doug, thank you very, very much for your time today. Thank you for your insights. I think it's been very valuable. We thank all of our participants. And I have a feeling that we're going to be getting together and talking about this topic again, probably in the near future. Thanks and goodbye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.